The shift. Nobody talks about when you are losing weight. Nobody really talks about what happens after the weight starts coming off. And I don't just mean physically, I mean mentally, emotionally, socially. Because one of the strangest parts of losing a significant amount of weight is realizing your body wasn't the only thing changing. Your confidence changes, your boundaries change, your energy changes, and suddenly, the people around you start responding to you differently too. That part can really mess with your head because losing weight can feel deeper than just calories and clothing sizes, especially when you've carried the weight for years. At some point, the body can quietly become connected to survival, identity, coping, safety, visibility, and the version of yourself you learned how to be. Why relationships start changing. One thing nobody really prepares you for after major weight loss is how relationships start changing too. And honestly, that can feel incredibly confusing because suddenly the people around you respond differently. Some people celebrate your growth. Some become distant. Some act uncomfortable. Some start accusing you of changing. But here's the truth. When a person changes physically, emotionally, mentally, or psychologically, relationships naturally start reorganizing themselves too. Not because your old self was less worthy, not because anybody is automatically evil, and not because losing weight suddenly makes someone spiritually superior, but because a lot of relationships are built around unconscious roles people get comfortable with. Who overgives, who stays available, who stays insecure, who keeps the peace, who plays small, who never changes, who needs rescuing, who centers everyone else before themselves. And when one person starts changing, the entire relationship dynamic shifts. Sometimes your confidence exposes cracks that were already there. Sometimes you realize you tolerated things because your self-worth was lower. And sometimes people struggle because the version of you they felt comfortable with is no longer the version standing in front of them. That doesn't automatically make every relationship fake, but it does reveal how many relationships are tied to familiarity, identity, and emotional roles more than people want to admit. Why people start treating you differently. When you lose a significant amount of weight, people often start reacting to you differently. They may suddenly listen more, compliment you more, project jealousy, become competitive, sexualize you differently, accuse you of changing, expect confidence from you that they never expected before, or become uncomfortable once you stop insulting yourself to make other people comfortable. And that can mess with your head because you begin realizing how conditional human perception can sometimes be. A lot of women experience this, but never say it out loud because society immediately labels the conversation as vanity. But it's real. Why some people were attached to the old version of you. One of the hardest realizations after major weight loss is understanding that some people were attached to a specific version of you, not just physically, psychologically, the version of you that was less confident, more available, more insecure, more emotionally dependent, more focused on everyone else instead of yourself. And when you start changing, it can unintentionally disrupt the balance of the relationship because some people were comfortable with the version of you that needed them more, the version that didn't challenge their habits, didn't set boundaries, didn't attract outside attention, didn't fully step into themselves. And when that version changes, the relationship dynamic changes too. Not everybody reacts to growth the same way. The painful realization. After weight loss. One conversation people avoid having about weight loss is how differently the world can start treating you afterward. Suddenly, people listen more, compliment you more, notice you more, treat you softer, act more interested in what you have to say. And honestly, that realization can hurt because it forces you to ask a difficult question. If I'm still the same person, why am I suddenly being treated differently now? A lot of women experience this after weight loss, but rarely say it out loud because society immediately labels the conversation as vanity. But it's not vanity. It's noticing how conditional human behavior can sometimes be. And once you notice it, it's hard to unsee. Why some relationships collapse after transformation. I honestly don't think it's coincidence that major weight loss sometimes exposes fractures in marriages and long-term relationships. Not because weight loss automatically causes breakups, but because transformation changes relationship dynamics, especially after someone rebuilds confidence, becomes more socially visible, starts setting boundaries, heals emotionally, or reconnects with parts of themselves they abandoned during survival mode. That kind of transformation changes people psychologically, and sometimes couples evolve together. Sometimes they don't. Because some relationships were unintentionally built around emotional dependency, low self-worth, caretaking, avoidance, or one person staying emotionally smaller. And once one person starts changing, the relationship has nowhere left to hide. Sometimes, weight was emotional protection. This is the part people really don't like hearing. Sometimes weight becomes emotional protection. Not in some mystical way, but in a psychological way. For some people, weight became armor, safety, invisibility, emotional buffering, protection from rejection, protection from vulnerability, or protection from being fully seen. And when the weight starts coming off, people are not just dealing with the physical transformation, they're dealing with emotional exposure. That's why major weight loss can feel emotionally overwhelming sometimes, because suddenly the protection layer is gone, and now the real healing starts. Stop using other people's reactions as proof of your value. One of the biggest traps after weight loss is becoming emotionally attached to how differently people start treating you with more compliments, more attention, more validation, more visibility. And while that can feel good at first, it can also become dangerous if your self-worth becomes tied to external reactions, because your value did not suddenly appear when the weight disappeared. Your value already existed. What changed was people's perception. And that's an important difference, because healing is not about becoming addicted to validation in a smaller body. It's about finally learning how to value yourself regardless. The real transformation. Maybe the biggest realization after weight loss is understanding that the transformation was never just physical. Yes, the body changed, but so did your confidence, your boundaries, your self-worth, your awareness, your relationships, and your identity. And maybe that's why this journey feels so emotional and spiritual for so many people. Because sometimes losing weight is not just about becoming physically smaller. Sometimes it's about finally reconnecting with the version of yourself that survival mode buried years ago. If any part of this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. I honestly think this is a conversation more people need to start having openly, not just about weight loss, but about identity, confidence, relationships, and what happens when you finally start reconnecting with yourself again. And if you're on your own journey with Zepbound, GLP-1s, or any kind of personal transformation, subscribe and come along with me because we're talking about the physical changes and the mental shifts nobody prepares you for.